And speaking of people who actually do have it hard, I want to look at the Whatever podcast, who was just recently doing an episode about persecuted Christians around the world. Now, that might actually deserve some of our attention outside of the picket lines of these people in Hollywood. If by chance you've accidentally stumbled upon the Whatever podcast, it is let's just call it a cesspool of millennial idiocracy. Very often they speak about controversial subjects and provide us just about the most Gen Z take on things that you would expect. However, every once in a while, they'll have some bright spots if they have the right kind of guest on the show, and they will talk about some things that actually truly matter and shine a light on some things that you don't find often enough. And the Whatever podcast did that just recently with persecuted Christians. Here's them having a special guest on the show from March for the Martyrs that dealt with that very subject.
It's Christian persecution.
So it's the persecution of Christians solely because of their beliefs.
So would this is predominantly people who are overseas, I imagine, like in other countries?
Definitely. Yeah, actually. So some statistics, 1/3 of the world faces religious oppression, and an overwhelming 80% of the oppressed are Christians. So we're talking about Christians in the Middle East. I'm sure everybody knew what was happening, or at least watched the news at some point when ISIS was campaigning a war on Christians in the Middle East, and we saw an 80% decrease in the Christian population in just one generation. So that's just an example of some of cases of persecution of Christians.
Is that because they fled the area or because they were killed?
It's both, but there was a genocide of Christians both in Iraq and Syria, and actually right now there's a genocide of Christians happening in Nigeria, believe it or not. In just 1 year, we had over 2,500 Christians that were killed because of their beliefs.
Now, obviously, a very important subject that we do not hear enough about, and I want to try to undergird what you just heard with some statistics. So in the past year, 360 million Christians, or 1 in 7 believers around the world, suffered significant persecution for their faith. And we're not talking about being made fun of here. Every day in 2021, an average of more than 16 believers were killed for following Jesus. With close to 6,000 total martyrs, 2021 saw a 24% increase in Christians killed for their faith. Just recently, the Christian Post did an expose on some of the violence that's taking place in India, which you may not know is one of the hotbeds for the most heavily places where Christians are persecuted. And they said this: at least 400 acts of violence committed against Christians in India in the first half of 2023. According to UCF's findings, the number of violent incidents against Christians has been rising steadily in India since 2014, with a significant spike observed in 2021 and 2022. The group also noted in its statement that the month of June saw the highest number of attacks against Christians, against the Christian community, averaging 3 incidents per day. Meanwhile, our president is toasting the leader of India.
Thank you for your partnership and your friendship. Please join me in a toast, but I don't know if we have any glasses. Cheers.
So a couple of points about this. Do you know any other religion that is pinpointed for their faith like Christians are? Honestly, think about all the major religions of the world if you want to relegate it down to 3, talking about Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. Is there any other religion that on a regular basis, specifically because of their faith, they are targeted and killed around the world, especially in the number that we just saw that I just read to you? About 16 a day being killed around the world just because they're Christians. Now, the media bias in the present would make you believe that this is not that big of a deal because we are interested in vastly less important things, as I just illustrated with the writer's strike and with the actor's strike in Hollywood. There are some things, however, that we should be thinking about that we're not told by the media. So for once, can we think for ourselves? For once, can we think about things that are important without being told that they are important? Now, point 2, we have a bad habit of missing the most important issues facing us. While Greta Thunberg points her finger at adults and tells them how shameful they are for not caring more about climate change, we in the real world are still wondering about how we can be so misguided as to miss the fact that we're still aborting babies on a regular basis. We're butchering minors in gender clinics, and Christians around the world are being killed simply because they are Christians. Now, if this does not reek of the kind of incompetence that we see on a regular basis that face us in our political realm, in our media realm, and in every area of life, I don't know what is. Now, I know it's a big subject when we talk about martyrdom, only to make kind of this sub-point, but I think it's something that needs to be heard. If I am right, and broadly speaking, humanity is full of incompetence. And the kind of incompetence that keeps us from really focusing on the things that really matter. Outside of some brilliant inspiration that hits us somewhere from the Spider-Verse, then doesn't it make sense that we need to put our faith in something that is bigger than humanity? As institutions crumble all around us because of wokeness, isn't it important that we put our faith in something other than our human-made institutions? And I know the argument atheists will make is to say, if a man is incompetent, then we must strive all the more to be better. And putting our faith in God is nothing less than a crutch, a cop-out, a distraction to helping humanity become the best that it can be. But this is a statement that is rooted in historically illiterate nonsense. The story of history, especially in the West, is that men have put their faith in God, and by that have found inspiration to make beautiful architecture, gaze into the stars to ponder the vastness of its creation, and the practice of medicine to help heal those who are hurting. For an illustration of this, I leave you with some profound thoughts by Tucker Carlson.
Architecture changed completely, and it went from designs that complemented the landscape around them to a kind of architecture that clearly hates people, that is designed to oppress the human spirit and make people feel without value, worthless. I think if you brought someone from the streets of Tokyo to the Cotswolds and said, what do you think of that building? He would say, that's beautiful, because beauty is inherent. Every person recognizes beauty. A Shinto temple in Kyoto, I recognize it immediately as beautiful, because it is. It's consistent with the symmetry of nature.
Municipal and state buildings were once plainly an expression of a contract between the people and their government of a good faith relationship.
I think that. I just thought that. I walked up with my wife in the rain on a village hall, and I thought, whoever built that cared about the people. It was built by the people who live there for the people who live there, and they loved the people who live there because they were related to them or knew them. It was built by peasants without machines.
When men turned toward God, they found the capacity for beauty that made our cities something to behold. As we have turned away from him, we have turned our cities into ugly cement blocks where gray is the most common color. So not only is our architecture uglier, but also humanity looks a little uglier. It gets a little bit more incompetent, in other words, and misses the big things that are all around us that should demand our attention. In that case, it is only logical and right to put your faith and your hope in a transcendent God. And I believe the God that you can find in Christian scripture, so that we may truly strive for something bigger than ourselves, so that we can finally strive for the divine. If that was in some way helpful to you, I'd love to hear from you down in the comment section below. If it wasn't, thanks for watching this long. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And most importantly, go with God.
So you just got done watching a small excerpt of a much larger episode. You can find the link to that full episode down below in the description of this video. So you definitely want to check that out, because if you like that clip, you'll like the much larger episode. And while you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and click that little bell to be notified when great new episodes of Indie Thinker come your way. Thanks for watching.